The GTR badge has become synonymous with some pretty tasty motorcars over the years, and the new AMG GTR you see here, all 577 horsepower of it, is no exception. The most powerful AMG in history is a full-on, no-compromise track monster. With adjustable traction control, a thundering twin-turbo V8 beneath its bonnet, and a £142,000 price tag to go with it. But what about the most famous GTR of them all? The one that's made in Japan and costs around half as much as its namesake from AMG. How does the legendary but now 10-year-old Nissan GTR stack up beside the one from Mercedes? We devised a variety of challenges to find out, starting here with a simple time trial through our favourite handling course, with both cars' various drive programs set to maximum attack, but with their traction control systems still engaged. You can see from the split screen that they're pretty much neck and neck through the snake, despite the Nissan being four-wheel drive and in theory being the quicker of the two from point to point. The AMG understeers a little bit more than the Nissan, yes, as you can see, but if anything it feels a touch lighter on its feet, a bit more agile and just quicker in a straight line than the original GTR. And by the end of the run it just pips the Nissan by a single tenth. Next test, cornering, and specifically how playful are these two GTRs on and a wee bit beyond the limit. Nissan first, and well, it doesn't do much really other than just get round the corner very fast indeed, with a hint of understeer in extremis, yes. Trouble is though, to get the best out of the Nissan you need to disengage its ESC system, but if you do that you invalidate the car's warranty, says Nissan. Hence the reason Nissan asked us not to touch the magic button. Whereas in the AMG you can turn the 8-stage traction control system right off and do this kind of thing in it all day long. Which might not be especially relevant to real world driving, but on a track it does give the AMG a key advantage. So the Mercedes wins this one and wins it fairly easily. Test number 3, the drag race. Except this time we've decided to make it a rolling drag race between 30 and 100 miles an hour, starting in second gear, in order mainly to eradicate the Nissan's eye-watering launch control advantage when it leaves the line, and to see how they compare side by side without the vagaries of a launch sequence. And as you can see, they are almost impossible to separate. The AMG just about edging it again as they cross the line at 100 miles an hour. So once more the Mercedes wins, just, but the Nissan is close enough behind it to almost not matter in the real world. Truth is, they are both outrageously quick in a straight line. Our penultimate test is one of noise. So we simply gunned each one from second gear upwards towards and then away from the camera and our microphones. And, well, you can make your own mind up as to which one sounds best. Nissan first? The 10-year-old GTR still sounds pretty tasty. But now the Merc and the AMG definitely sounds a bit more thunderous and a bit less technical than Nissan perhaps. And it's definitely louder too. But which one sounds the best is in the end entirely subjective. And personally I love them both, but for very different reasons. Final test, subjective impressions. How do they make you feel when you're behind the wheel? So you get in the GTR and, you know, it's a quite amazing thing this, because this year, 2017, this car is 10 years old. And although, you know, some of the architecture does feel ever so slightly yesteryear, because it's a bit kind of old tech computer geeky, but in most ways this thing still feels utterly cutting edge. You kind of get the impression that all those years ago they designed this car around the driving position first and then just attached the rest of the car to that, because it's just beautiful the way you're located behind the wheel. And I love the fact that the whole dashboard moves up and down and the wheel moves in and out, so your kind of line of sight has this lovely consistency to it. You know, there is not a lot to complain about in here, and an awful lot to get really excited about. It sounds really good. It's still got this kind of blend of fizzes and whooshes and a little bit of whine from the diff at the back, which, you know, if you wrote that down on paper and said there's a bit of diff whine, you go, well, that's no good, let's iron that out. But I love it about the GTR. It just makes it feel really kind of analog and technical, if a little grainy in terms of its refinement. But, you know, the thing about the GTR has always been the way it goes. And this one, although it is a little bit more refined, it still goes like a train. Okay, this is how quick a GTR is in a straight line. I'm going to try and read off these numbers as we go. That's 25 miles an hour, second gear, put my foot down. 25, 36, 45, 50, 75, 80, 90, 100. I've just short shifted, it's 120. From 30 to 120, that fast. Okay, it absolutely munches through fuel if you put your foot down, if you use the throttle with enthusiasm. And no, the ride's not too brilliant, and the rear seats are a bit pathetic. I mean, it takes up a massive amount of road space, considering how little space there is inside. Boot's pretty big, but are we really that worried about the boot space in a car like this? Final point about the GTR is it still represents a quite incredible amount of value for money. 85 grand this thing costs in this spec. That is half the price of the Mercedes, and no way is the Mercedes twice the car of the GTR. No way. I have to say, the moment you get into the AMG GTR, it does feel pretty special. I mean, there's this huge long bonnet out in front of you, and it almost feels as if you're sitting on the floor. Proper, not sports seats, I'd almost call these race seats. They absolutely clamp your torso in position. And the dashboard is quite sort of old-fashioned and analog in that there are kind of traditional instruments, but it definitely feels more modern than the GTR inside, just because it is. I mean, you know, there's 9-10 years difference in the fundamental architecture of the two cars. I'm not sure this thing feels 9 years younger, but it definitely feels ever so slightly from another era. But the defining thing with this AMG GTR obviously is one of the things is the way it looks, especially in green, but it's just the way it sounds. It's utterly rude. And those crackles on the overrun and on upshifts as well, if you're in race mode, which I am, it's just, it properly adds to the experience. What you can do in the Mercedes, you just can't quite do in the Nissan, and that is the big ones of those. I mean, it just does it magnificently. When it goes to begin with, because the diff response is pretty aggressive. If you've ever tried to put an M3 sideways and thought, my word, that got away from me a bit quick, recalibrate your brain, because it goes even faster in this thing. I mean, as a result, you need to put the lock on pretty fast. The fact that it's got these Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s on it as well just means there's a bag of grip, and then you just fall straight off the grip. But no, it's a very, very special piece of kit, this. I don't think it feels twice as much money as the Nissan, because in a straight line and everything, you know, dynamically there's not a lot between them, but just to climb in and be in and spend time in, it kind of feels very expensive indeed, and very, very lovely. So there you go. When the original GTR meets the latest one from AMG, there are fireworks. And inevitably, the GTR that's newest and almost twice as expensive just about edges it in the end. But look, in reality these two are genuinely great high performance cars. And personally, I reckon I'd take the 10-year-old GTR over the latest one from AMG and trouser the change. But if you were to think differently, you'd not be wrong either.